Hey there, EB here with our Anything But Bland weekly update. A little tired. I stayed up watching the Yankees and the Dodgers last night, and I got to tell you, I'm heartbroken. I am a Philadelphia Phillies fan, but I've always been a Yankees fan, and I was rooting for the Yankees. It's been 15 years since they had a world championship with A Rod and Derek Jeter, and it was disappointing. This team was tailor made for a World Series. Their murderers row lineup of Gleyber Torres and Soto, and then Aaron Judge, Chisholm, and then Giancarlo Stanton is just incredible. They had a pretty decent starting rotation. Obviously, they have Garrett Cole, who was a Cy Young winner last year. The Dodgers are a loaded team with really great hitters. But their pitching was absolutely depleted. Matsuyama had been injured, and he started pitching well and pitched really well in the series. Walker Buehler pitched okay, but they were a depleted pitching staff that was basically getting by on relief pitchers actually being starters. And so what Dave Roberts, the manager for the Dodgers, did is he would just have one pitcher for 1 or 2 innings and then put another relief pitcher in. And the Dodgers won the series in 5 games. The Yankees threw away game one with Freddie Freeman's grand slam, obviously, in the bottom of the 10th. And then game 5 last night, they absolutely threw it away. The 5th inning was a comedy of errors in reality and figuratively speaking. It was hard to stomach. The Yankees all year have been poor base runners. They haven't really done the fundamental baseball that you would expect. And that's really because, and I think you saw it, the American League is much weaker than the National League. The Yankees basically had an easy ride through Kansas City and then Cleveland. Cleveland played the Tigers. The Orioles were a decent team, but they didn't make it to the playoffs. And the Yankees, once they faced a real team such as the Dodgers, their weaknesses became pronounced. The National League had great teams. Not only the Dodgers, but the Braves were good. The Padres are a very good team. The Phillies are a great team, but they didn't do well in the series. And obviously the Mets played extremely well up to the National Championship Series. But the 5th inning was something I had never seen before. And Judge had not hit. Aaron Judge, who is really the straw of their drink, had not hit through the first 4 games. I think it was like 2 for 15. Ohtani also, Shohei Ohtani also didn't hit, but he had a dislocated scapula. He slid into second base. I think it was the second or third game, the second game, and he injured his scapula. And you could tell that he couldn't get the cuts that he wanted. And every time he ran, he was holding his shirt like this. So he was injured, but Freddie Freeman for the Dodgers was amazing. He hit a home run in 4 straight games in this series, and 2 dating back when he was with the Braves in 2021. The Dodgers had won that shortened season when we had COVID, but that really nobody counts that as a World Series, just like nobody counts when the Lakers won it on the shortened season when they played in the bubble down in Disney World down in Florida. So, Freddie Freeman is amazing. Mookie Betts was amazing. And Teoscar Hernandez was amazing. Everybody for the Dodgers did what they had to do, but the Yankees last night clearly blew it. Judge found his bat last night. He hit a beautiful right field home run in the 1st inning on first pitch, followed up by Jazz Chisholm, who hit a moonshot home run, and then Giancarlo Stanton hit his home run. And so they were up 5-0, and it was cruise control. And if they won that game, then you go back to LA for game six. And obviously the Dodgers had not been hitting, and the Yankees win game six. Then all of a sudden game seven starts to flip. Very rarely does a team ever come back from a 3-0 deficit, so history was against the Yankees. But the fifth inning was something that's going to haunt the Yankees forever, and that is Judge dropped the fly ball in center field. Then Anthony Volpe for Kiki Hernandez was going to third base. He tried to throw him out, and Jazz Chisholm couldn't get the ball, and so that was another error. So we have an error on Judge's catch, who was looking to throw out Kiki Hernandez at first base and didn't pay attention to catching the ball. But then the most amazing thing was that there was a infielder's hit that was done on towards the end of the fifth inning, and it was a dribbling ball, had spin on it, and Anthony Rizzo backed up from first base for the Yankees, and he fielded it. And usually you toss it to the pitcher. Unfortunately, Garrett Cole, the Yankees ace, stood there kind of catatonic almost, like he was, he didn't know whether to move or stay or go to first base, and he was still, and just there was no one to throw the ball to first base. The runner got on, and then Teoscar Hernandez hit it to the fence, and they tied the game up 5-5, and then they went on to win the World Series. I don't think the Yankees are going to get over this. I really don't. Aaron Judge clearly is going to go down in history, dropping that ball almost like Bill Buckner did when the ball went through him in the 1986 World Series. Certainly, Garrett Cole, who pitched 6 one-hit innings until this happened, with where he didn't go to first base, I think it's going to be hard for him to live it down. And looking at the Yankees roster, look, they're going to have to make a decision on Juan Soto. He is earning $31 million a year right now at 25 years old. It's a one-year contract. They rented him for a year, and they got to the championship, but they expected to win it. He's going to get a 10-year, $700 million contract. He's going to have the second largest contract to Ohtani in baseball. And the question is, I think it only shows that there are 4 teams that possibly can bid for it: Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, and the Dodgers. I don't think the Dodgers are going to go get into the bidding war, and he doesn't want to go to the Dodgers because he may be the third only best hitter there behind Ohtani and Mookie Betts. So the Yankees are old. Judge is now going to be 33 years old. Stanton's going to be 35, turning 36, with a very old man's body. Garrett Cole's going to be 35 years old. And so once you strip out Soto, the Yankees become very pedestrian. So it was a great World Series. I think baseball's in a good place. I think they've sped up the game in between pitches. It's not as laborious to watch as it once was. I thought the instant replay was perfect at first base. There were 2 times, either last night or the game before, where the umpire called the runner out, and on replay it showed that he touched the base. Freeman on one play, and there was another player for the Dodgers. So I like instant replay. They're thinking about going to an automated strike zone. So that's my take on baseball. I think it's in a really, really good spot. There are some amazing players. I'd like to see Mike Trout get back and get healthy and somehow find his way to the playoffs, because he's the greatest player of our generation who no one has seen. Certainly Bryce Harper, he's not won a World Series, and he's with the Phillies, and I would really hope that he gets his chance at it. And then obviously Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to come back, and he's another top 5, top 10 baseball player. So I think baseball is in a good place. Let me cover sports, and then I'm going to get into the politics. Alabama football. If you watched the game last week, they did win, but it was not really pretty. They played Missouri, and it just didn't look good. Kalen DeBoer, I don't think, is the same type of coach that Nick Saban is. there's lack of discipline on the Alabama football team. I really think that the players are doing things today that with flagrant fouls that Nick Saban would not have tolerated. So I think Alabama is about to be a pedestrian type of program in the SEC. I think the premier teams are Texas A&M, that's a one-loss team. I think obviously Georgia is heads and tails above everybody else. Oregon, it just continues. Dylan Gabriel for them continues to throw touchdown after touchdown. They're the number one team in the country. I think they deserve it. Penn State is still undefeated, and so is Miami. And I don't think Clemson's going to see Miami until the championship game. Penn State is playing really well. They beat Wisconsin last week. So it's going to really be interesting. The Miami FSU game last week was sad because it used to be the rivalry of all rivalries when you had Howard Schnellenberger for Miami, Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson. You had these top flight coaches, and of course you had Bobby Bowden. And something's happened to Florida State. I know Mike Norvell is the coach there. He won Coach of the Year last year when they were 13-0 before their quarterback got injured. But there's something going on with that program. There's something going on with Florida that really prevents them from excelling like they used to. Regarding the NBA, we watched Bronny James and his father suit up together this week and get in a game, and that was pretty interesting. You know, we've seen that at various times in history. Obviously, Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. played at the same time, but they were really close in talent. You know, don't forget Giannis Acapatuco on the Milwaukee Bucks made sure that his brother is on that team, and his brother stinks. So, you know, Bronny, it's a shame. You know, he's got a rough time. He's going to have to go down to the G League. People don't believe that he belongs in the league. Obviously, Anthony Davis is playing exceptional, but, you know, we do know that his nickname is Anthony Street Clothes Davis. So can he stay healthy? They lost last night to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So after going 3-0, the Lakers are now 3-2. Kawhi Leonard should retire. He plays for the Clippers, and what a great player, two-time NBA champion and MVP, two times of the series, a perennial All-Pro, an amazing two-way player, offense and defense, really shines during the playoffs, but he's been injured so much. He couldn't make the Olympic team this summer after being selected because of injuries, and I really think that it's time for him to retire. We had somebody who died this week, Terry Garr. I don't know if you remember, she was a really pretty blonde, and she was in Young Frankenstein with Gene Wilder and Marty Feldman, and it was really a Peter, I forget his name, a tall guy that played Frankenstein. Was a hilarious movie. Bernadette Peters was in that movie as well. She also was in Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman, and believe it or not, she was 79 years old, which is just stunning to see that she got that old. There are some other things that happened this week in South Carolina. Alex Baer, who was the individual who bought Mizell from after it was being sold for the Murdaugh estate, the Mizell property, he comes out with this unusual news that he saved the door where leading into the feed room where Paul was shot, as well as the window, and he claims now that he can analyze where the pellets went, and he believes that Alex is innocent. You know, he's not an expert witness. I don't know what his background is in munitions, but that kind of made news. The other thing is that we had the Menendez brothers this week being in the news, and they're going to be resentenced. They've already done 25 years. They're going to be resentenced. Remember, they shot both their parents with shotguns, which is a pretty gruesome way to kill somebody. It was one of the first televised trials, and the DA for Los Angeles felt that there was some evidence of parental abuse, sexual abuse, that would be a mitigating factor in the reason for the murders. They're going to be resentenced and qualify under the Youthful Offender Act and should be eligible for parole. So I tend to think that 25 years is long enough for the crimes that they served, and they should have an opportunity to, get freedom and see if they can do it. We're going to have the Daniel Penny trial coming up. I don't know if you remember that. There was a gentleman that was, not gentleman, a guy that was a homeless guy acting crazy on the subway in New York City, and, was becoming very abusive and started threatening people. And Daniel Penny, who is a martial arts expert and also a former service member, put him in a chokehold, and he ended up choking him to death. And he's being tried. I think they overcharged him. I'm not sure he should have held on to him as long as he did, but that's an interesting thing as well. Let's talk about a couple things before we really get into Trump and Kamala. Trump says that he's going to turn over a substantial portion of the health department, HHS, USDA, the FDA, and some other organizations to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Remember, Robert F. Kennedy, whose family is traditionally Democrat, has pledged his support to Trump, and Trump's going to turn that over to a guy who's an anti-vaxxer, who believes that there's chemicals that the government is putting in water that is causing people to become transgender or gay. I'll say that again. He has actually said that the government is putting chemicals in our water that turns people gay and transgender. That is extremely problematic. I think he's a first-class whackhead. He has a number of things that he has said, that he's had a parasite in his brain. He's addicted to sex. He's cheated on his wives, 3 of them. His second wife died under troubling circumstances. She committed suicide. Some say that he drove her to it. So I'm really troubled that if Trump wins, that he would turn over in such important things of vaccines and different FDA food requirements. Now, some of the things that Kennedy talks about food, I do agree with. The chemicals that are put in food, he wants to have a more natural type of food being provided to our country, so I do not disagree with that. The other problem I have is with Elon Musk. Now all of a sudden Elon Musk is going to become the czar of economics and streamlining government, just like he streamlined X and all the different companies in. And I have a problem with that because his space program is under contract with the federal government, and also his satellite links and cloud storage also have contracts with the government. Elon Musk is not somebody that I admire. I do admire his intelligence. I do admire his entrepreneurial spirit, but he's a stone cold sexist, and he's a stone cold anti-Semite. He has said some pretty inflammatory things as well. He's now being sued by the Philadelphia district attorney because his voter sweepstakes that he wants to do violates the election laws. He, I think, is somebody who I would not let in my hen house, but Trump seems to be pretty enamored with him, and I know that he gave close to $500,000 to one of Trump's PACs, so that's an interesting thing. A new groping allegation came out this week against Donald Trump by a former playmate. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if someone's trying to make it an October surprise, but that has not really caught up a lot in the news. With Musk, he's been in contact with Putin. He doesn't hide from that. I don't think we should have our business leaders contacting somebody that is an enemy of the United States, and Putin and Russia are an enemy of the United States. Um, he also said that women shouldn't vote. He's made certain statements, which shows me that he's anti-woman, women. And can you imagine that? After suffrage, Susan B. Anthony, 1925, when women got the right to vote, that he's actually out there saying in 2024 that women shouldn't vote. Um, the next thing is really disappointed in the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post for years and years and years. They've made endorsements of presidential candidates. They were a very serious newspaper. Obviously, Woodward and Bernstein came from the Washington Post, and they were the ones that uncovered the Watergate scandal and wrote about it and all the president's men and Deep Throat and all the other things that came out of Watergate. The editorial department, which is separate from the news department, endorsed Kamala Harris and wrote that editorial a couple weeks ago. And Jeff Bezos put a kibosh on that and said that the Washington Post is not going to endorse any candidate. They tried to justify it that before 1955 they never did endorsements, and I think it's totally transparent because it was really done 2 days ago, this close to the election. If Bezos really wanted to make that something that was objective, that should have been announced during the summer. But it's obvious that Bezos is worried about his own personal interests. He has contracts with the government for his space program and different things that Amazon has with their delivery services for the government. Bezos is starting to be somebody who is not to be admired again. A lot of these people are becoming oligarchs, and a lot of these people are fearful if Trump does win the election that he will seek retribution against them during his first term. He spoke a lot about his dislike of Bezos, and I think Bezos heard the message. So now let's start talking about where we are with this election. We're about 5 days out. Everybody has had a complete stomach full. Hey, Sonny Daz, good to see you. People's decisions always boil down to money. Yes, that's correct. Follow the money. So looking at this election, we're starting to see different people take different sides. This week we had Leonardo DiCaprio, which is no surprise, endorse Kamala Harris. The surprise that I did see, though, was Arnold Schwarzenegger also endorsed Kamala Harris. And, he's a Republican, and I know that Trump's going to say, and a lot of the MAGA people will say, well, he's a Republican in name only, but he was a pretty middle-of-the-road Republican as a Republican governor of California. And he has pretty much stayed away from politics, although I do know that he doesn't like Trump. They've had some, the public spats together. But for him to come out in favor of Kamala this close to the election, I think is pretty big. It could, sway a couple of the middle of the roaders Republicans who had difficulty supporting Kamala but didn't want to vote for Trump. I think the bigger endorsement or lack of an endorsement, the biggest problem has happened with the Madison Square Garden. The Madison Square Garden gathering last week by Trump was extremely impressive. I absolutely was shocked that 20,000 people in the middle of New York City, in a Democratic state, a pretty liberal city, very liberal city. There were 20,000 people in Madison Square Garden with another 20,000 waiting to come in. That was impressive to me. What wasn't impressive is there was a lack of a female representation at the speakers, and the speakers were horrific. The comedian made jokes about Palestinians throwing rocks, Jews with money. He made a joke about rock, paper, scissors. But the worst thing he said was that there's a floating island of garbage in the ocean, and that's Puerto Rico. And That really, really stung. Why did it sting? Because Trump didn't denounce it. He never came out personally and denounced it. Now, as his campaign did, and said 2 days later that they disagreed with it. But all of that was vetted. Every bit of every speaker's speech from the conventions on forward are always vetted. In fact, they took out a joke where somebody was going to use the C word and they kept on saying the C word, C word, C word. And then the joke ended with commie, not the C word like we think the C word. But that was something that they did take out of the comedian's speech that he made. And so that to me tells me that they saw the Puerto Rican joke, but they didn't think it was offensive. It offended so many different people, from Bad Bunny to Puerto Rican rappers to Jennifer Lopez. I have some Puerto Rican friends that were Trump supporters that now are not. That is a big statement. Don't forget, during the hurricane in 2017, Trump got in a spat with the mayor of San Juan. He didn't feel like the mayor was grateful enough to Trump for the allocations that FEMA made, and so he was going to cut the island off. He made a statement that said, you know, they're not real Americans. Yes, they are. They are Americans. They do vote. And then he threw the paper towels. And so there's just been this tense relationship that he's had with Puerto Rico. And he needs the Latino vote. And that hurt him, not only with Puerto Ricans, hurt him with some Cuban Americans, and I think it hurt him with other Mexican Americans. So that was a horrible thing to say. That's just the comedian. The others said some incredibly racist and vulgar remarks. One man said that Kamala Harris was a sick bastard and a sick son of a bitch. Another person said she's the devil, she's the Antichrist. Stephen Miller, who was in Trump's first administration, said America is for Americans only. It doesn't need a Malaysian president. Kamala Harris is not Malaysian. That was really another slight that was against her. Tucker Carlson, who previously had said daddy's coming home to take care of all the bad people, calling Trump like daddy, referring to him as a godlike figure. He also called Kamala Harris a low IQ. That seems to be a common description. Trump calls her low IQ. He actually said she was mentally retarded. If somebody has that kind of low IQ, how come she kicked his ass at the debate? How come she beat him so bad that he didn't want to debate her again? How come she did such a bad job and she's so low IQ that she went on 60 Minutes, but he decided to cancel it? There was another speaker who referred to the Democrats as pimps, and they called Kamala a prostitute for the Democratic Party. Again, they called Democrats degenerates. Now, I will say this. It was 100% wrong for Joe Biden to refer to Donald Trump's supporters as garbage. He tried to be cute and said, Puerto Rico isn't the garbage, it's Trump supporters. That was a horrible thing to say. I think it could hurt Kamala. She came out immediately and distanced herself from it. Biden tried to say, something, I didn't really mean it. No, you meant it. It's a bad thing to say, similar when in 2016, Hillary Clinton said, Donald Trump's supporters were a basket of deplorables. It was a horrible thing to say. But let's not forget that Trump called America this week a garbage can. And he actually bragged about it when he said America is a garbage can. He said, that's the first time I've used that description. I kind of like it. We're a garbage can. America is not a garbage can. America is not a third world country. America is not a banana republic. Regardless what you say, regardless if you don't like Biden, regardless if you don't like Kamala, you can't argue with the economy. The stock market's strong. Inflation has gone down. Our tax structure is as good as it's been in a long time. We're producing stuff in America. things are not as bad. Low unemployment. Yes, we still have higher inflation than we would like, but wages have gone up over the past 4 years. So I have a real problem with that Madison Square Garden and what took place. Nikki Haley actually has come out and said she found it disgraceful. She finds that there's too much bros at these Trump speeches and not enough women. It was interesting that she admitted she has not spoken to Trump since June. Now, she came out and supported him and said she would vote for him, and he wants some of her voters. And it would have been really smart if he sent her out on the road, because she did a pretty good job gaining 22 to 28% head-to-head against him in the primary. And clearly he holds a grudge. He came out last night, remember he called her bird brain. Last night he called Elizabeth Warren again Pocahontas. So he went hard to his nicknames again. What's troubling to me is it came out this morning that Trump now is starting the trope, already laying the groundwork. He said that Pennsylvania is suffering from mass voter fraud in early voting. There is zero evidence of that. Zero. There's nothing. Nothing has come out from any district attorney, some that are Republicans in Bucks County, Montgomery County, some of the other rural areas in Pennsylvania. There is no widespread voter fraud. Are there a problem with a vote or two? Absolutely. It happens in any county. Happens here in Lexington County. You're starting to see judges trying to, being asked to purge voter rolls. Some do, some don't. You're seeing judges now being asked to keep the polls open later, or the registration for voting, early voting being kept open later. All those things I applaud. Anything that would let somebody vote, even if they take your vote away, you have a right to do a provisional vote. So I'm all for voting, both sides, no limitations, vote. But I'm also for only people that are American citizens, that have gone through the process and have an ID, a valid ID, to be able to vote. I'm troubled by that there are voting boxes where people put their early ballots in them like mailboxes, and they're being lit on fire. These are being done in Democratic areas across the country. I'm not saying that Republicans are doing that, but that is a real problem, and voting records should not be messed with. If you put your vote, your ballot in one of those boxes that were lit on fire, go down to your local election precinct and you will be able to vote again. The Economist, which is a very conservative weekly periodical by the business community, came out today and endorsed Kamala Harris. They said that Trump's economic policies are too dangerous for this country, will cause us to regress and head into a depression. Even Elon Musk said that he doesn't agree with Trump's total policies on tariffs, and that it will cause our economy to dip. That's charitable words. One of the messages that came out at the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden, somebody said that this Halloween blacks are going to be carving watermelons. Can you imagine a speaker actually said that from the dais at that? Can you imagine when you're trying to peel away black voters from Kamala, whether they're male or female, whether you're trying to peel away Latin voters from the Democrats, to call a Latin country, Puerto Rico, garbage, and then to say that on Halloween, instead of carving pumpkins, blacks are going to carve watermelons. I'm frustrated. Kamala is held to this standard of perfection. She must dazzle every single speech at every single turn, as Michelle Obama said. But we overlook a lot of what Trump says. We explain it away. We say, well, he's tired. He didn't mean it. These are people that had spoke at his rally, but it's not him. Or he meant to say this. He's shown a history of erratic behavior. He's a convicted felon. He's a known slumlord, a predator who's found liable for sexual abuse, and yet we're picking apart her answers left and right, saying that, oh, she hasn't said enough. If you listen to her speech at the Ellipse, it was substantive based, it was policy based. She had a to-do list, she didn't have an enemies list. She focused on the future of our country, which doesn't seem to be done by Trump. Now, I will say, with all that said, I think our country is going to vote Donald Trump into office. I absolutely think that the country wants to go back to when he was president. They feel like that he has better control of the world stage, and that we will not be drawn into wars. They believe he has a better control on the economy. Me, I think the reason that people are supporting Trump is we've had enough of the immigration problems in our country. I also believe that something needs to be done on immigration, but I'm not so to the point where I want people absolutely deported, picked up from work, and put in internment camps. No, I don't want that to happen. But I do want tighter immigration rules and tighter asylum rules and the ability to keep people out of our country who are dangerous. So I am all for that. But I think it's a single issue for so many different people. And I also think that there's just an issue of wanting a strong man to be president as opposed to a woman, and especially a black woman. Donald Trump continues to repeat his lie that U.S. schools are sending children while in school to hospitals to have a gender-changing surgery, and then they're being taken home to their parents, going to school as a male, coming home to school as a female. It's 100% false. His campaign couldn't find one single example where that ever happened, where somebody went to school and then without parental knowledge had their gender changed. But he keeps on saying it. He's starting to say that the vote is being taken away from him, that there's wholesale fraud. So yes, Linda Limerick, I do think that there is a double standard out there, but you know, history has a way of repeating itself, and it certainly is starting to happen. As I said last week, I think we are heading towards the starting line and not the finishing line, and I think it's going to be a tumultuous 5 months, regardless of whether Trump wins or he loses. I think we are in for some major civil unrest, and I'm really, really scared. So it is hard to believe, Sonny Daz, that people do believe when Trump talks about, you know, these gender affirming surgeries or people eating dogs and cats, and, you know, always these illegal immigrants are committing crimes. Absolutely, they are committing crimes, but they're anecdotal. They're one or two in a city, while crime is being committed every day by Americans, white, black, Asian, women, men, that Trump doesn't talk about. Again, he trashed Detroit again this week. So I am really, really worried about North Korea and the alliance that they're starting with Russia. North Korea has sent 10,000 troops to Russia to train. I just found out this morning that now some of those North Korean troops are fighting in the Ukraine war. That is a real problem for us. North Korea has never really had good armies. They haven't been involved in conflict. And now if they learn how to fight warfare, there's a high likelihood that they would attack South Korea. And now because they're supporting Russia against Ukraine, they could count on Russia's support if there's a war between North and South Korea. One thing that I really laughed at, and it's really sad because, you know, his daughter got ground up in it. Trump was talking about his daughter Tiffany, who's the daughter of Marla Maples. He has Eric and Donald and Ivanka, who are with his first wife, Ivana, and he has Barron, obviously, with Melania. But Tiffany's kind of been the forgotten Trump. Lately, though, he does talk about her. Bright woman. Went to the University of Pennsylvania, and then Georgetown Law School, and she married a billionaire hedge fund guy. So that made Trump happy. So this week, Trump was at an economic forum, and Tiffany's father-in-law was in the audience. And this is when Trump always takes a bridge too far. Instead of just talking about Tiffany, that she went to Penn and she went to Georgetown, he had to say she graduated #1 in her class from Georgetown Law School, which was a complete lie. It's a shame. For her to go to Georgetown Law School is amazing. She's brilliant. I couldn't get into Georgetown Law School. I went to, University of South Carolina, good school, but not in the league of Georgetown. I couldn't get in Georgetown if God himself did my application. Turns out, though, the next day that Georgetown Law School came out and said, Tiffany didn't graduate #1 in her class. We don't have class ranks. But more importantly, they said she didn't graduate summa cum laude. She would have if she was #1 in her class. She didn't graduate cum laude. And she didn't even graduate with honors, which would be a 3.2 GPA and above. And so instead of building her up and making people admire her, he created an embarrassing situation for her, because now it's obvious that she didn't graduate in the top of her class and maybe was in the middle, which is no shame at all. But don't go around and just making up a set of facts just to make yourself look good, or you have this family, this idyllic family, saying that she's #1 in her class. The P. Diddy stuff is really starting to unwind. This week, the federal government came in and tossed the entire Brooklyn jail where he's at, because they suspect that things are being delivered to him inside the jail. They came out and they had the requirements for these women who come to these sex off parties, and they had to actually get weighed. And there was a weight limit of 140. They had to have few body tattoos, not a lot of piercings, and that is just demeaning incredibly. Now I'm being told that there's a lot of A-listers who know they're going to be outed, and they're trying to settle their case with Busby, who's the lawyer for a lot of these victims out of Texas. The P. Diddy thing continues to spiral out of control, and I think we're going to end up finding out a lot about a lot of people. And so that is the weekly update. Sonny Diaz said that, how can people believe this crap? I understand. Morgan Sanders says it all gives me anxiety. I have anxiety as well. I'm very scared for what happens after next Tuesday. Then we have some follow-up questions. Royalty at 0303 wanted me to make comments about the racist remarks at the Trump rally. I've already done that. Casey, and I think it's Casey Odell, asked me if there's any news on the R.J. May investigation, and he is the state House member here from Lexington that had his house raided and with a search warrant, and he was arrested, or not arrested yet, but there was a search warrant executed, and I think it was his wife that reported him. The federal government said there's probably going to be criminal charges brought against him within 3 months, so it's going to be very interesting to see what it concerns. It's probably over state lines. I'm not going to say what I think it concerns, but I think you all can probably guess. Patricia asked me, what do I think is going on with North Korea sending troops to Russia? I've already talked about that. I think Russia needs manpower. Obviously they've conscripted a lot of people over 40 and 50-year-olds and made them into the army. North Korea is nothing but trouble, and making an axis of evil between North Korea, China, and Russia is not in the best interest of the United States. Catherine asked, how about the rumors that the A-listers from the Cone parties know exactly who they are and are going straight to Busby to settle? Yes, I've heard that, and I think it's a smart thing to do. Could it be happening? Yes. Does the tactic work in civil litigation that they would have to keep that quiet? It does. You can enter into non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality agreements. If they're going to be prosecuted, then it would be up to the FBI. I think it's a federal crime that he is charged with these federal crimes. So it's going to be up to the FBI whether they bring additional charges. Corey Burns just popped on and said he enjoys the comments each week that I make, and I really appreciate that. Closing up, the book is going on sale, I believe, either tomorrow or Monday on Amazon. These are pre-orders. The book is finished. I added some pictures this week of Gloria Satterfield and some other things related to Alex Murdaugh. I think you're going to love the book. I enjoyed making it. It was more stressful than I thought. You know, you have to lay it out there and you realize that you've done some things in your life that you're not proud of. And, you know, to write a book honestly, you have to talk about the good and the bad. So kind of anxious for that to come out. Book signings are, my first one's going to be on December 7th. So that is what we have going on. And everybody, it's Halloween tonight. Enjoy your kids. Enjoy giving out candy. And we'll talk next week. Thank you. EB out.